Welcome to Buckeye Football Fangirl. My name is Lisa, and I'm the gal behind this channel. And today I am joined by a very special guest, one of my besties in this life, Danielle. Danielle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really great in my Notre Dame gear. I'm doing
Yes.
great. No, I'm great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. So I'm so
So
excited to talk about football and specifically Notre Dame OSU.
it's going to be such a good game. So, if you couldn't notice, Danielle is a Notre Dame fan, and given the game that they're the wrong colors, but given the game that we have coming up, I figured it'd be fun to have her on here. I've known Danielle, we go way back. So, and our friendship transcends football, but for this moment, we're going to be talking about some football that we got coming up here because this is going to be quite the matchup. We've got a clash of two amazing teams. They've had seasons that are incredible. They've experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. We'll talk a little bit about that. But real quick, just introduce yourself, let people know kind of like, how did you become a Notre Dame fan? Who are you? Like a little bit more about that.
Yes. Well, like she said, my name is Danielle. I was born and raised in the area. I've been here the last, goodness, probably at least 10 years. I've been back in the area. Lisa and I met in college down south in Florida.
In Florida, yeah.
And then kind of went our own ways. So yeah, kind of lived all over. I lived Chicago, DC, Florida, kind of lived all over, but settled back here in South Bend. Bought a house in South Bend a few years ago. And I'm only like 9 minutes from door to door to Notre Dame's campus. So it's been really exciting. I work in real estate and I'm licensed with a company called Irish Realty. And I worked for a home builder called Irish Custom Homes, but they're kind of like not really in existence right now. So I now work for another home builder and I love it. I've built quite a few like fun design Notre Dame projects and Notre Dame homes. So that's a really fun tie for me for Notre Dame. And some of my best friends are the biggest fans that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So they've roped me into many tailgate and many game just excitement all around. They have young kids.
What
So
it's about,
it's
though,
so
right?
amazing. Like being in this area, I wanted to leave and never come back. And then I've been back and I can't imagine being anywhere else.
Mm.
And it's such a great time to be a Notre Dame fan. So, I mean, the Freeman era, it is the best era in a long, long time. We're loving it. We're loving it.
We'll see how you feel after Monday, but
How you feel after Monday? I want Ryan Day to lose so bad. Okay, he needs to lose.
But I love hearing that story, and I love just the true fandom that comes out of that, and the fact that you get to live in the same city as your team. I am so jealous of that because I would
Yes.
love to live in or near Columbus, Ohio, so I could do that. I
Yes.
could go to the games, I could tailgate, I could
Yes.
be
Yes.
much more involved in my
Yep.
fandom as opposed to just sitting in front of the
Yes.
TV and yelling at it each
Yep.
weekend or weekday that they
Yes.
play.
Yes.
But oh my goodness, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad that we get to chat about this. I'm glad both of our teams are playing each other because
We've been talking about this for weeks, though.
we have.
Okay,
I was
we've been
rooting for
talking
this
about this.
matchup. I wanted
Yes.
it so
Yes.
bad.
I just kept thinking about, I'm like, we've been talking about this for a while. And I know that we weren't sure at any point if it was going to happen or not.
You never
And
know.
oh, yeah. So just to have it happen for both of our teams to be in is just like the absolute best.
Yes, yes. So I know we are both experiencing the highs right now. I mean, heading into the national championship game, it doesn't get much better than this. However,
Mhm.
we have also both experienced the lowest of lows this season, too. So I
Yes.
saw an article that was teased on my phone about a team going into the playoffs. This was before the semifinal games, but a team going into the playoffs and potentially having the chance to play for a national championship after suffering their worst loss ever. And I'm thinking, oh, they have to be talking about Ohio State because of the Michigan loss this year.
Yes.
However, I
Yes.
opened the article and they were not. And I was like, so let's talk a little bit about that because I know that
Yes.
loss to you, was deep and personal too.
Yes. I had the best seats I've had all season on the 50-yard line.
Ugh,
I was
at that game.
at that game. Yeah, it
So to
was
back it up for Ohio State fans who maybe
yes.
weren't paying attention,
Yes.
Notre Dame played.
NIU. Northern Illinois, and the fans were not nice fans, generally speaking. They were not very nice. And I just remember being so upset because they weren't great fans. They were just blowing in our faces and like just
Ugh,
it was of course like we knew we could do way better than that. We knew that was a rough game for Riley Leonard. It was so disappointing and we're all just sitting there like, "No, this can't be
you're like,
happening."
what is happening?
Yeah.
This is not our team.
Yeah, and
Can
there's the whole
relate.
story too that I'm sure like I'm not sure if any of your fans would have seen it, but Riley had to leave campus escorted by police. And then he
What?
shows up, yeah, and he showed up for his post game like meeting with Freeman and he's just a mess. He's just
Oh,
so devastated. He's like, "I blew it." And Freeman just laughs. And he's basically like, "This is going to be the game that teaches you something. Either it's going to
oh,
make you or it's going to break you," essentially in so many words. And he did. Riley Leonard allowed like the worst loss of the season, and not just Riley, but I think the whole team, obviously. And I think with Freeman at the helm, coaching them through like the
mm,
should never have been loss, coaching them through that has really set them up for
mm,
success for the whole rest of the
mhm.
season. So,
So it
I
was kind
mean,
of that
yeah,
pivotal moment, that turning point
yes,
for your team that they kind of needed to get them to where they are now. And I would
yes.
say it's eerie because Ohio State had that moment against Michigan, or as we call them, TTUN, that team up north.
I
And
forgot you call him that. So bad.
it's habit at this point. It's weird for me to say Michigan actually because I'm so used to calling them TTUN.
Oh
But
gosh.
after that loss, we watched that game and we're like, who is this team? This is not the
Yes,
same team that we have seen all the way up until this season, and obviously it's
yes,
not the same team that we saw, up
yes.
this point in the playoffs too. They came
Yeah,
out and they played with a fire. They played with passion. We're like, this is the team, but where was that team on that game? Who
yes,
knows? But it's almost like we needed that turning point. It was one of the
yes.
worst losses ever,
Which
not just to the rival, but like ever.
oh
And
no.
so
Oh
it was
no.
just one of those games that's just like it leaves you shaking your head, but here we are.
How many weeks was that in? Was your Michigan loss? Was it beginning or end of
Very
season?
so that game's always our very last game of the
Oh,
regular season. It happened the last weekend in November,
oh my
and this cloud hung over our fan base
goodness.
because it meant that we didn't get to go to the Big Ten championship game, which was where we wanted to get our revenge on Oregon. We got our
Yes.
chance later, but we didn't get to do that. We didn't get to be Big Ten champs, and our hope
Oh
was a
no.
playoff run, but we just didn't. A lot of fans, rightfully so, didn't have a lot of hope in the team and the coaching
Yes.
being able to get us very far in the playoff run unless
Yes.
things changed, which they have. And thankfully, look at where we are now. It's crazy.
So crazy. You never know what's gonna happen. That's what the best thing is about postseason. You never know what could
Yeah.
happen. A Cinderella story could potentially happen. Well, I mean, what do you think? Because Notre Dame hasn't lost a game since the NIU game. What do you think about that momentum in comparison to
That's a
the
lot
late
of
season
momentum.
loss?
And I have to say, the similarities between these teams, as I think about it, there's so many other things they have in common. So, and I want to talk about this a little bit more. We both have transfer quarterbacks. So,
Yes.
you have a transfer quarterback, we have a transfer quarterback. We both have really solid defenses. And
Yeah.
so, there's just so many similarities here. So,
Yeah.
let's jump back to the transfer quarterback. I'm
Yes.
curious, like, tell us a little bit about your quarterback. Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
how you and the fan base in
Yeah.
general are feeling about him.
Yeah, I think that the fan base really loves him because he's just like, first of all, he's got a heart of gold, just like comes from a great family. I actually met Riley's parents at a tailgate. I met his mom and his dad. They're just the nicest people. And that's the cool thing about living in South Bend. You're just meeting these people's parents and you're hearing the stories from them about their own kids. So
Mhm.
meeting his parents was really great. They're really gracious, lovely people, and just really down to earth. And that they really exemplified who he is. Just a
Mm,
really down to earth guy, always wanting to give glory to God, and just never always taking the blame when he messes up, and always giving the credit to the team that has held him
mm,
up. I think that's what makes Notre Dame one of the most likable teams right now in sports, because for the longest time they haven't been,
mm,
and for a variety of reasons. I think a lot of people don't like that they're not in a conference. I think a lot of people don't like that they think that they're snobby Catholics, and there's a big misconception about who they are, their identity. But I think right now, a lot of people I've seen and I've read, a lot of people are really like pro Notre Dame because I think we're the underdog. I think we're the Cinderella kind of story. I mean, that's what the betting places are all saying, that we're not favored to win. So yeah, I think that the Riley's likable. I think the team is likable. I think that what's not to like about a guy that is humble and gives really credit to his amazing coach and this coaching staff
Mhm.
in general.
Mhm. So what should we expect to see from him on the field? What type of a quarterback, or what type of things will he be throwing or running
Yes.
at us?
I mean, I think that that's his threat, is that he can run. He's a tall guy, he
Mhm.
can run, and he can run fast, and he's surprisingly fast. I
Mm.
think he just has to remain composed and really be careful about throwing interceptions. I think that's
Mm.
what I want to see from him. I mean, we really do have, and that is dangerous. It's dangerous in his throws, especially with an Ohio State defense. When Riley Leonard got hurt and they thought he might have a concussion, and Steve Angeli came in, I mean,
Mm.
he's an incredible backup quarterback. He's not even a
Yeah.
backup. He's like a
Yeah.
second gold arm, and you saw
Mhm.
that. You saw how
Mhm.
he came in, energized the team, and we came back to win it all.
Did.
Like,
He
and that
did.
that momentum change happened because of Steve Angeli.
Mhm.
So, if I could combine Steve Angeli and Riley Leonard, I mean, that's like a dream team of like legs and throwing. And I
Mm.
just so I think if Riley can just really keep composed and be smart with his throws and know when to run and know when to throw it, that's going to be
Mhm.
the key, especially against such a strong defense with Ohio State.
Mhm. And I'm curious too to dig a little bit more into what you were talking about with Notre Dame being a likable team and things changing specifically about the culture, I think,
Yeah.
at the
Oh,
program.
totally.
Can you talk a little bit
Yes.
about those changes and what it's like
Yeah.
now?
I mean, I have to take it back a little bit to explain about the culture change.
Okay, let's
In
do it.
2012, when we played Alabama, I was living in Chicago and I was at a pub at a bar watching with a bunch of my church friends. And it was like awful, as you were probably, I don't know if you remember, but it was awful. And it was just, we were demolished by Alabama. And
We
it
know the
just,
feeling.
yeah, it was horrendous, and it wasn't even a contest, and it wasn't even, like, worth watching the second half of the game, from what I remember. I mean, I've kind of tried to block it out of my memory, so I don't actually remember, like, how bad it was in the
I
4th
can
quarter.
relate.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think about even growing up here, and I went to school with a lot of these players' kids. So, I remember very specifically the Tyrone Willingham era. His kids were so nice at my high school, and so I wanted him to do well, and he didn't do as well as we wanted, obviously, so that was, like, a disappointing thing. I'm like, "Well, you want the nice guys to win. That's what you want. You want the nice guys to win." And I didn't care for Charlie Weiss. I didn't care for, Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly didn't talk to his players nicely. His players didn't respect him. And I mean, a lot of people feel really strongly about Brian Kelly, as do I. And so that whole like old school, I want to say, mentality of talking to your players and treating your players, I think we were ready to see that be gone from our university. I think we were ready to see humility and respect and kindness come back and be represented as it.
Mm,
I mean, we are a very service oriented university, a
mm,
very others oriented university. So I was ready to see someone stellar. And like I was thrilled when they announced that Freeman was going to be the coach, because the players already knew him and loved him and respected him.
yeah.
And very rarely does a guy on the inside get a shot. He had no like head coach real experience from what I remember.
Mhm.
And so to
Another
see him,
similarity.
yes, and to be promoted from within is always nice. It's like, you've been
Mhm.
loyal to the university, you want them to be loyal back to you. So I think that culture change happened so much internally. I think when Freeman took over, I think he had the same character the whole way through. When Brian brought him in, he was that same guy as he was today, like
Mhm.
loyal, devout, encouraging, hopeful, visionary, supportive, and tough, and like never give up, never quit, very gritty. So that
Mhm.
same mentality he had when Brian was there, but I think it was on full display, and you have a lot more control over the culture when you're the head coach. So
Yeah.
I just see it as great job of the athletic department of Notre Dame to select him.
Mm.
And it's just ushered in a whole, I mean, just the excitement around recruiting is unbelievable right now. A, because we've gotten so far down the path, but B, because of Freeman being a player's coach. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
only, because you do know, I'm sure you already know this, but like we only have like one 5-star recruit, and you have what, 14? Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's a lot. There's a
There's a
lot.
lot. There's a lot. Okay, so I really am like we're trying for a win with this recruiting season. So
Mm-hmm.
anyhow, I just think the culture change has been phenomenal. Again, most people vote against us. Any chance they can, they root against us. But I think it's a little bit different this year, and I think it has so much to do with Riley Leonard and Coach Freeman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned a couple other similarities, though. The fact that the head coach was promoted from within, never
Yes,
had head coaching experience before.
yes,
So very similar to Ryan Day
Ryan
in that
Day. Yeah,
sense. Marcus Freeman is a former Buckeye, though.
I know.
And
Okay, which
so
means he has an edge. He has an edge because he knows some things.
he knows some things. We also have a former Notre Dame coach or assistant, anyways, on our
Yes,
staff now. So
fair
that's
enough.
something interesting too.
Yes,
But I don't know. There's just so many unique angles, so many storylines going into this
yes,
game that's just like, oh my gosh, it adds another level of intrigue. There was a whole thing that came out after Marcus Freeman took the job at Notre Dame where
yeah.
he basically Ohio State fans felt like he was dissing our university.
Oh, come
And
on now.
there was a
Come on.
lot of people who were just like anti, Marcus Freeman there for a while. I haven't held it against him per se, but it's just that extra level, that
Yeah,
extra link. It adds more intrigue to the game. It adds another dimension, another
yeah,
layer into that.
yeah.
So this matchup, my goodness, I am so excited for this
I'm
matchup coming up
dying
on
to
Monday.
ask you though, what do people think of Ryan Day as the head coach? What do Ohio State fans think of him as a coach? Because I mean, I've only know what I know about Notre Dame. I don't know what how you guys feel about Ryan Day.
It is a roller coaster. Every
I was
season,
waiting for
this
this.
this season in particular, people have been up on him this season when they were doing
Yes,
good, and then
yes.
the TTUN game or the Michigan game happened, and people wanted him gone because
Okay, but one game though.
yes, to our
Why do you
to
guys fair weather
to okay,
fans?
it's not just one game. This is four in a row to our rival. When
Okay, well then now I
we
get
are
it.
the better, we were supposed to be the better team. Obviously, we didn't show it on the field during that game. And it means so much. Like this is how much that rivalry
That
game means
rivalry.
to
Yeah,
Ohio State fans.
it's
And
true.
there is just this narrative too, and this perception about him not being tough enough or his team's not being tough enough, him not winning the
Mhm.
big games when it actually matters, where there's a handful of games we can point to and be like he
Yeah,
won those games, but then there's other playoff appearances where they didn't show up and they weren't competitive. And it's like if he is good but not good enough to get us over that hump to like what
yeah,
we really wanted, which
yeah.
was to win the rivalry, to win a natty and bring that home, then people wanted him gone and they wanted someone else to come in and try to do that,
Okay,
which
well then I have
it's nuts because any other team, I think you have a coach
yes,
with his record and they
yes.
love him. But it's different in Columbus, Ohio. It's different.
Okay,
And
so I have to ask this follow-up question then. So then does that mean that Ohio State would be like fans would more likely want Ryan Day fired for not beating Michigan than going to the national championship? Like if they had to
that
pick.
has been the big debate
Okay,
this
because I'm dying
year.
to know the answer to this question from fans.
Because it's been, and I think people are still split because this is a new way of thinking, this 12 team playoff, the chance
Yes,
that,
yes.
because before it meant if you lost that rivalry game, you usually weren't going to the playoff unless something really weird happened in college football.
Well,
Now that there's 12 teams that get in, you don't have to win that game anymore. So that
yes,
kind
yes.
of, it's a mentality shift, and it's like a change that's been happening among our fan base. And there's still people that feel like that game is the most important game, and there's other people that are like, but if we go this year and we
Yeah,
lost to TTUN or Michigan and we go this far in the playoff, isn't that kind of redeeming? Shouldn't we be shifting our focus a
focus.
little bit? Like
Yeah,
what actually matters more? And fans will still answer different things to that, but I think it's
Yeah.
just like things are changing in college football so rapidly. And
Yes,
especially with
they are.
this playoff, the way
Yep.
things are with this 12-team
Yep.
playoff, not to mention with
NIL,
all the other
all the
changes,
things.
NIL,
Yeah,
transfer portal, like everything. It's nuts.
so
So
crazy. It's
it's
hard to
just
keep up.
it's a different way that things are now. So like it's the mentality shift has not happened completely with our fan base, and depending
Right.
on how this game goes on Monday, who knows what people are going to be saying in our fan base. We've been
Oh,
called the lunatic fringe, we've been called, we're a bunch of nuts, like, and yes we are. We are, but we have also reasons, and there's very very high expectations, and
yeah. Well, you've had a
it's
storied
not a straight
program.
thing anymore.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of complexity and layers to it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I think it's harder when you have a storied program than to like be at, it's harder to be at the top. People are always coming for
Yeah.
you. They're always coming for
Yeah.
you to bring you down because you've got the biggest target. And well, and honestly, Target, you're red and white. You've got the colors for a target on your back. So come on, like
I mean, we ain't changing that. We ain't
I
changing the
know, but
scarlet and
I'd
gray.
love to see it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Notre Dame win. I know what the numbers say. I know what it says, but you know what? I love an underdog story, even not for Notre Dame. I mean, even in pro teams, I'm just like love to see what I've seen from the Detroit Lions, like rise from the ashes. Yes, I love, and I want to see like the Bills win a Super Bowl. So I feel like it's like I can't help it, even in pro, even when I want to see the underdog win.
And
So
I'm
we'll see.
usually a huge fan of the underdog. I love the
Besides the
underdog
state.
story, but I mean, when it comes to Ohio State, I mean, they are my team.
You've been
I am
bleeding red and white and black and whatever other colors for a
I
long
am yeah,
time.
I'm ride or die Ohio
Okay, but
State. Like,
please answer this question for me.
yeah.
What is up with the marijuana looking stickers on your helmets? What is
So
that?
okay, so
What is that?
Those are Buckeye leaves. So the state tree is a Buckeye tree, and it
No.
produces a nut that's similar to a chestnut, and you'll see our mascot Brutus. He has the Buckeye head. It's like the Buckeye
Yes,
nut is
I've
his
seen
head.
Brutus.
And
Yes.
so the leaves are the leaf of the Buckeye tree. It's not marijuana.
Okay, but it looks not great.
but
It's not
but
great on the helmet.
it's a really cool tradition, because every time a player makes a play in a game, they earn a Buckeye sticker. So
Like a Girl Scout badge.
you'll
I like
see
it.
it like a,
A
I
Girl Scout.
mean, it's like a little different, but but you'll see
But
their
is it
helmets.
though? But is it though?
You'll see their helmets anyways. You'll see their helmets fill up throughout this season, and that goes to either, on defense, like a tackle or a stop or
Mhm.
a sack or something like that, and on offense, like, a catch or, a key block if you're an
Yes.
offensive lineman or something like that. And
Yep.
throughout the season, their helmets fill up with these accomplishments, and so that's just one of the traditions that Ohio
Oh
State
my goodness.
has.
As I'm sure there are many, which I don't know enough about. So I'm sure at some point we'll get to that. But I was just curious. I was like, what are those stickers? I was watching and I was like, that does not look like a good representation. I don't know what those are. Now I know. Now I know.
Yes, yes, it's a very,
We have our
very
own traditions at Notre Dame, so I can't knock them all because we've
every
got
school
our own.
does, right? Every school has
Yes.
their thing that someone else looks in on, is like, why do you guys do that? Like,
You
what's
know,
up with
like
that? But
not everybody can
no.
have dancing guys in kilts, okay? Or a leprechaun, a lucky leprechaun.
That's right. So one more thing I did want to touch on before we wrap up for the night. We're recording in the evening. This won't be released in the evening, but before we wrap this up, I wanted to talk a little bit about the defense, because you
Yes.
guys have a solid defense, really solid
Unbelievable.
defense.
Yeah.
We have a solid defense too, but that has tended to be our weakness. When we run into
Oh,
trouble and our offense isn't able to get things happening, it's because we are facing a really tough defense. So
yep.
can you talk a little bit about, what we should expect to see
Yes.
from your defense?
I mean, I know we've had lots of injuries on both sides of the ball, which is like, I think my biggest concern, like
Mm,
heading into this game, are the injuries. I mean, we lost Benjamin Morrison really early in the season. He's such a dynamic player and
hmm
such an incredible person. Just a great guy. And so losing him early on was disappointing for me as a fan. But even like there's a guy named, I think Snead is his last name. He got injured. He was a tackle that got injured. So they were just talking about who are they going to shift around. I think, Xavier Watts is massively dynamic on defense, and he's going to be one to watch in this game.
Mhm. Mhm. I've
And
heard a lot of talk about him.
yeah,
Mhm.
he's great. I think it's if the defense can stay locked in and really throw Ohio State off their game, that's going to be the winning ticket.
Mm.
And overcoming these injuries. So who they have in places, if they're locked in this week and they're prepping well, I think we do have a shot. And there's just playmakers on our defense, which is like, it's just incredible. Again, considering the amount of 5-star like recruits we have versus a lot of these big school teams, like, you know, the SEC. Everybody always says like SEC, nobody can beat SEC. And so I'm honestly the most thrilled that there are 0 SEC teams in this game.
Same.
I just want to be
Same.
like, what? I can't hear you. I can't hear
Mhm.
you. I love it.
SEC.
Yeah,
SEC.
exactly. So SEC, SUCK. I love it. Anyways, so it sucks, whatever. It's fine. Anyways, I just think in general, like with the defense, I just think they've got a shot. They got a shot to disrupt Ohio State. And I really just see they've had a whole season under their belts. So even with the injuries, I think you've given enough players enough time to really dial in. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful with our
Mhm.
defense. I think that there's a lot of playmakers out there. I mean, so
Mhm.
many people. I mean, I was at the game, at the IU Notre Dame game when Jeremiah Love caught the interception and ran it all the way back, and I about lost my
Ah,
mind. And so, I mean, just as so many playmakers on the
mm.
team that are just going to really show up and show out.
It's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
tough matchup. It's
Yeah.
I mean, your Notre Dame tough defense against our offensive
Yes.
line, which is we've been battling injury on there all year, and
Yes.
it's a makeshift line at this point, which has been
Yeah.
holding steady through the
Same.
playoffs. But
Same.
again, the injury stuff, it can totally wreck things. But it's going to be such a good matchup. I'm
Yes,
looking
it is.
forward to it so much. I
Yes,
hope
me
everybody
too.
watching this just soaks it up. This is the last
Yes.
game of the season. Period. This is the last game for everybody. Our
Ah!
our teams, Danielle, our teams are the last two
Oh my
teams
gosh.
standing, and that's incredible in and of itself. No matter what happens on
Yes.
Monday, I hope everyone enjoys this game, soaks it up for what it is, because it is a long time until we get to see
Yes.
football again. It's so long.
Yes.
Oh, that drought until the
No.
spring game, which when we get like a teeny tiny taste until the fall rolls around
Yes.
again. It feels so long. So definitely take time to soak this up. I may or may not be able to be part of the watch party that I've been a part of recently on the
Oh,
OHIO podcast. I might join for part of it. I'm just balancing some things as a mom with my son home with me watching the game. If he watches the full game, I might not be able to jump on, but if he gets bored and whatever, I'll probably be able to jump on for part of it. I'm going to try to do that. But regardless, Ohio State fans, Notre Dame fans are welcome to the OHIO podcast, host a live watch party. So jump on there. We're always interacting with the chat. The chat is amazing, dynamic, and we're experiencing the game as it's happening and reacting to plays as they're happening. And it's just a good time all around. So definitely everybody soak this game up,
yes.
enjoy it, because this is such a rare opportunity to be able to see our teams play. So Danielle, do you have any final thoughts, or do you want to let people know where they can find you? Maybe there's some Notre
Yeah.
Dame fans who stumble upon this podcast and want to connect
Yeah.
with you. Where can people find you?
They can find me at DM. As in, I don't know, Mother Mary, but no, no, very Notre Dame theme. DM Sauter, Sautter on Instagram at DM Sauter. I will be definitely sharing my experience about the game and just cheering on my Irish. I know, do or die fan. Really hoping in this Freeman era that we get a win because 2012. It's been a long time and I'm getting old and I want to see them win. So I say that with all love and due respect to you and your Ohio State Buckeyes. It's
I
going to
feel
be,
you, girl. I
I
feel you.
really want,
2014 has
I
been us,
know,
so it's
I know.
been whew,
I really
it's
want a
time.
good game. I want an exciting game. There's nothing that I hate more than a blowout. And I
Mhm.
feel like with these two teams that we're going to have a great game. And that's what I want to see. So,
We'll see.
yes, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for jumping on here with me. It has been such a treat chatting with you about this game that we have coming up. I know you and I are both pretty competitive, so even though we don't see eye to eye
No.
on this
Yes.
game, it's still amazing connecting, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you for that, and thank you everybody who tuned in too. Please drop us a comment below. Let us know what your thoughts are going into the game. How do you think this game is going to play out? What are you looking forward to seeing the most? I would love to hear from that, and I try to respond to all the comments too, because that's one of my favorite parts of making these videos. So with that, that's all I have for you guys, and I will see you all on the other side of this game. OH.